Animals have been my ongoing theme for quite a long time. I actually was always fascinated by animals as a little kid and always kind of studying them and playing with them and learning about them and drawing them. And when I started making sculpture, I started investigating animals, and it's just been continuing to be my main theme. There's a lot of realism in the sculptures, and I do like having a lot of knowledge about animals and their behavior and anatomy and that sort of thing as sort of background information that goes into the work. But I don't think of sort of a realistic portrayal of an animal as being my main objective in the work. The animal's the theme to work with, and I'm interested in conveying more of the expression of sort of the movement or the inner emotion, or how the body can change through motion in these sculptures. And I think one of the things that's interesting about animals is that they express themselves through motion, and I think I'm trying to convey that. That's also why I choose to work, rather than building sort of a really solid form, I choose to work with lines, because I like to be able to build up lines, sort of three-dimensional drawings, and have this process of sort of sketching in air, and I always can take away or add on more. There's never the perfect line. It's sort of an accumulation of lines that create the gesture. And even though I'm making sculpture, my idea is not to make a static form. I think that's the thing I'm sort of searching for, is a thing that appears to be continually moving. And again, that's why there's not one perfect line to describe the thing. It's like this accumulation of lines that keep conveying a movement in the piece. Many of my pieces have had these very extreme gestures to them, where I'm sort of seeking some kind of ultimate moment. A lot of them have been very aggressive images, and it's not that I'm trying to just be interested in violence or something, but just that I want to capture a sort of extreme moment and sort of the inner vitality of the creature. I was thinking how a lot of times if you go to a zoo or something, your expectation of an animal can be a little bit disappointed, because you go and see this thing that's a lot smaller than you expected, and it's all furry, so you can't really see its form, and it's usually asleep in a corner and you can't really see it. And I'm not trying to idealize the animal, but I'm trying to convey almost what your imagination seeks in the thing, like your idea of the creature. These particular pieces, there's not such a violent action going on. I think in the past few years I've been still trying to convey an intensity in the work, but sometimes it's a little bit more restrained, and the movement is maybe about something that's about to happen rather than a really violent lunge or snapping or something, which is what I focused on a lot before. So I'd say that in a lot of the pieces I've been doing recently, it's almost the creature sort of turning and becoming aware of a presence, or just potential for motion. So some of the animals are sort of coiling or spring-like or that sort of thing. Or even just like in this guy here, he's actually very static, and there's not really any motion at all except for an alertness coming up together in the front and in the head. I spent some time last summer and last fall walking around the botanical gardens, looking at the different types of terrain and environment and possible sculpture sites, and thinking about the different moods of the different areas. Another thing that I thought about was simply that as a viewer, it's different than being in a gallery. You're going to be walking along a path through the wood out into an open field or around some rocks, and again, I wanted to have that feeling of encountering something and being surprised by it, and also that you as a viewer are going to be deciding what's going on. I thought about the kinds of animals that exist in Maine or that one might come across walking around in the woods there, and I thought about how to create that sort of interaction that you could come upon a creature, but I didn't want to simply make a realistic, life-sized, exact rendition of an animal. What I'm interested in is making something that conveys that sudden excitement and surprise that you have when you encounter wildlife. As I was thinking about the types of animals that I might include and was thinking about what animals capture my imagination, I started realizing that many of the creatures I thought of, like elk or wolves or caribou, are extirpated species that once existed there but then essentially were hunted out of existence, or their environments disappeared or were encroached upon. And that actually became an interesting idea to develop, because partly because of the environmental aspect of it, but also in that sense of them being, these animals that I was thinking about being animals of the imagination, and that the representations I made of them are these kind of recreations or reimaginings of creatures that once existed in a place. The fact that they're not totally realistic makes a lot of sense. They're representations of the imagination, larger than life, that they could have a sense of being an animal of legend. I think that the cougar or mountain lion is another extirpated species in Maine, but I've been reading about that there's been many sightings of them over the years, and there's that sense of the ghost or phantom cat, and I think many people are convinced that they do exist here, and maybe they do, but nobody really knows. I like that idea of something that might be there or might not. I feel like the sculptures are conveying that sense of presence, but at the same time of absence. I think that's partly in the way that I make them, that they're built up out of these lines, and sometimes you just barely see them depending on how the light hits them. And it's actually the human eye that really picks out the form.